All right, everybody, welcome to Cyber Bulls. So with TeslaBot and FSD making serious progress over the last days and weeks, I wanted to ask a question. What is the impact of Tesla stock as each milestone is achieved? So we've invited Dr. Scott Walter with us. He is a two-time robotics company founder, and we're going to walk us through what is happening with TeslaBot, what's in latest news. Why don't you set the stage for us and tell us what you think is happening now?
Hi, Herbert. Hello, Jeff and Xander. It's nice to be on the Bulls. I think I'm pinch hitting for Alexandra, so I'm going to have to, boy, pressure's on here, okay? Got to limber up and make sure I've been on the on-deck circle long enough. So, yeah, I mean, what we've seen is that certainly a lot of people have discounted the whole idea of the Tesla bot for a long time because it's kind of the stigma associated with the idea of talking about humanoid bots coming in and replacing labor. A lot of people don't believe it. But a lot of the big news that I think is really going to help the Tesla bot has everything that's been happening outside of the Tesla bot world. And of course, last week we had the NVIDIA conference where there was a lot talked about in AI, but it seems like most of the thing that people talked about or the headlines were about all the bots that they have. The fact that there's a cooperation with 9 different robot vendor companies to work with developing these humanoid bots. The fact that you're seeing there's so many different companies that are in this space. Not just in China, but also in the U.S. and in Europe, that now people are realizing, hey, this might actually be happening. And if it's happening, it's also happening somewhere else, and that's in a company called Tesla. And they have the Tesla bot. In many sense, they should be given almost the credit for this happening because they were the ones to sort of start to bring it out into the sunshine, even though they were ridiculed for it at first, to now start showing it. And so they've made a lot of progress that we've been able to see that we're now into the generation 2 version of the Tesla bot. I would say it's almost more like the generation 3 because they had the first version, which was Bumblebee, then what they called the Gen 1, and now the Gen 2. And the Gen 2 is looking awfully close to something that you would get ready for some form of scaling up. Now, whether that's just like an internal customer within Tesla, because the theory has all along been that Tesla will make money with this bot without selling it. And just by using it internally. If it's able to affect the margins of the company, then it is actually helping the company that way. And then when they have the possibility of scaling up outside, they'll be able to make a lot. So it's a long-term play for sure. It's not something that's necessarily going to add a lot to the profits in the couple of years. But if you're following the space very closely, you're going to realize this is happening. And it's not just going to be happening in Tesla, it's going to be happening everywhere else. And people are starting to get ready for it. And the other developments is not just that there are these companies out there doing it, but the videos that they're dropping, what they are showing that they were doing, the fact that you can now start talking to these bots, the fact that they're able to solve fairly complex tasks very easily with just limited instruction sets, the fact that you're able to demonstrate how the bot should do something, and then pretty quickly after that, it's able to actually do the same thing. So this is a paradigm shift, not just in the field of labor and how it's going to disrupt that, but also in how we teach robots in general. So when I tell people for the past 40 years that I work in robotics, a lot of them imagine I'm actually working with something that looks like C3PO and are really disappointed when they show them a KUKA arm or a FANUC arm and like, oh, it's that. This is like a machine. But it's a programmable machine, and it's a very difficult to program machine, turns out, to really persuade it to do the kind of task that you want to have. And we've been working. I mean, that basically has been my life's passion, is to find a way to make these things easier to program, to be able to very quickly demonstrate the task that you want it to do and get it up and going. Because in many cases, the amount of time that went into programming the task might be longer than the entire run that you want it to do. And so you'd like to avoid something like that. AI is a game changer there. And we're also seeing there are companies that are working in that area. They're taking AI and they're applying it to traditional robotics as well. So that means manufacturing in general is going to improve a lot. The humanoid bots are not going to replace industrial bots, okay? The industrial bots are very specific to do a certain task, and they do that task very well, very quickly. Once you can get them programmed, and once you've gone through all the engineering and all the tooling, they're remarkable. The advantage of the humanoid bot is that it's very flexible. It's able to do a lot of tasks very easily. And we have in manufacturing basically a couple of different groups of volume manufacturing. So you have like the extremely high volume manufacturing, where you'll have very dedicated hard automation to be able to do that at very high production rates and very low costs. And then we have kind of the middle ground, and then we have very, very low volume. The middle ground is where it's very hard sometimes to come with hard automation because it's too expensive to put in there. And that's when you go in with flexible automation. It's called flexible because it can be reprogrammed, and that's where you start throwing robots at it. And then we have like a lower end, which is like the scale is so small, it's really hard to even do the flexible manufacturing, because the flexible manufacturing is actually a bit inflexible when it comes to doing those kinds of tasks. And that's really has always been the purview of humans doing that kind of labor. And now we're talking about potentially being able to disrupt that part of the manufacturing process where the low volume kinds of things, those that are very difficult tasks to be able to automate, now we can start talking about automated humanoid bots. And that's why you've got a big revolution going on there. And with all things, a lot of times the technology you develop in one area can easily be deployed in a lot of different areas. So, expect to see that coming up over, the next several years and going into the 2030s. It's going to be a wild ride.
Thanks, Scott. That was great. Appreciate the good overview. So I wanted to ask Jeff and Xander this question, and you as well, Scott. So what is the impact to Tesla stock? And I'm going to list out a number of milestones to get there. But just the fact that the humanoid robot is going to replace the single largest industry in globally, right, which is labor, $44 trillion per year, just even that, the idea that it's so big that any kind of movement or milestone improvement, there should be some value being attached to this. Now, I know, Jeff, you have said previously that you don't actually think that it's going to impact a stock until after you actually see the bot or investors see the bot in a factory or some location, a customer situation where they're actually replacing a true human or doing a humanoid like work. That's only time we'll see the stocks start going up. Is that what you think, Scott? Jeff?
Yeah, for the most part, I think the market wants, because right now you've got a lot of, I've seen a lot of the some of these robots that are in a particular car factory torquing something down or putting a fascia on via some sort of double-sided adhesive, and like, oh, we've got robots in factories. And the real metric is human labor replacement with humanoid, and a number going up on the screen. And that's what we want to start seeing. I think the piloting is kind of the first steps. I don't even know what we're seeing out there right now with these demos. I think they're all I don't think there's, I don't put a lot behind them yet. So yeah, I think the markets want to see this. Now, who knows? It's hard to call markets. They're supposed to be looking ahead. They're supposed to be thinking ahead. And I think the thing with Tesla is the advantage that Tesla has is they're going to design something that can economically scale, that can physically scale through manufacturing, and they've got the best training or testing grounds of any OEM that's making bots. They've got an automobile factory, they've got a SpaceX factory, they've got a Starlink factory, really all different sizes of product. And I do see these robots kind of starting at the outer perimeters of factories and working their way in. But yeah, in terms of the stock, I think I would think that they would want to see it actually start impacting the numbers. So there's a feasibility thing. And then I also think what's going to happen with some of the competition, like the 9 or so bots that were standing behind Jensen. I mean, I would be surprised if 1 or 2 of them actually got into true mass production where they could build a lot of them and they could actually make money off of them. Because again, I think it comes down to the economics, the ability to manufacture, and the performance, current drain, speed, and so forth. And I think the company that has the capability to put all those 3 together is going to be the winner. And I just don't think it's going to be all 9. It's going to be, I think, a very small fraction.
All right, then let's continue asking the question. Pretty sad answer, Jeff. That's too bad, but you're probably correct. Let's walk us through. Like, what if there's milestones, right? The first milestone could be an additional demo drop, right, showing that the Optimus bot is incredibly intelligent. It can do incredible, human-like reasoning. It can be trained and it's autonomous. That's milestone one. Milestone two could be that they actually show, I don't know, that they've already built 200 bots, but still not yet, in a factory. Milestone three is they're actually piloting in a factory, but a pilot. They still call it a pilot, still call it a beta, but they actually show that it can work. And then milestone four would be they've announced that they've manufactured 1,000 or more. Every one of those milestones still not going to improve the stock or impact the stock at all or minimal until only after that it's already physically bought by a customer, truly is now working 24 hours a day, those kind of things. So let's get your thoughts first, Xander, and we'll go around the panel.
Thanks. First of all, can you hear me okay
Yeah.
with the new setup? I think that you're not going to need revenues uh, to come through the financials in order for the stock to move up. I think it's just a matter of, uh, since the market is forward looking, it's about seeing that revenue is coming. And if heard from like a 20-year financial person in actually our space, right? And you heard what he said. They're looking at the car business right now. They're going to use that to kind of maximize their puts going into this P&D number on Monday, or on Tuesday, uh, and then the shift is going to occur from their perspective to start building up a position. So they're not waiting, right? So they're not waiting for that shoe to drop. They're looking forward, and I think that's going to be the sentiment across the board, especially now that we hear more and more chatter from some of the analysts. But what happens once more of them start saying it, and then you have that FOMO run that can occur.
Yeah. So why don't we go through the milestones again, Scott? What do you think the milestones are? So I kind of threw out some ideas here, right? So demo showing how much more smarter the bot is and can do things autonomously. Then I think I said something like, being able to actually show 30 of them, still in a factory, just still in their labs, and then maybe 1,000 of them in a pilot. Sorry, a pilot then that third milestone would be in a pilot in a factory, and then the final one would be 1,000 or more that they've already manufactured. What do you think, Scott? Is that the right milestones, or is there others?
Yeah, I think those will be important milestones. The question is whether they inform us of those milestones when they happen. So I think I kind of agree with Jeff that you're not going to see the needle move very much in the stock with regards to the bot having anything. There's going to be other things that move the needle that may have nothing to do with it. So I have no idea what the deliveries are going to do to it, but the bot's really not going to have that much an effect. And we can probably see that historically is that if you look at, because some of those milestones have sort of been met, maybe quasi a little bit here, there in a few places. And it's not clear that had any impact on the stock. It made a lot of us more bullish and looking long term on what's going on. And some people maybe could see that. But for it to really start having an impact, I agree, it comes down to useful work. And that's really what Elon sort of told us is like they'll start using usable work probably sometime next year. And so we had to say, well, what does he mean by usable work? Is that just a demonstration that shows it can do something? And I agree with Jeff. It's like, it's not. It can't be a demonstration of it showing that it's able to do this, that, or the other thing. Because a lot of times people don't have that much imagination. They can't say, well, just because it can walk around, just because he lifts it up, does it really mean it can work in the factory? Well, either they're being very skeptical and they think it's not, or they really want to see it. So when you can start demonstrating that, yes, it's not a pilot anymore, because a pilot just means you're trying to proof of concept that it can do a couple of these things. It seems to be all right and reliable, but still not good enough to do what we want, and that is replacing labor. So it's going to go beyond the pilot. It's going to be when they can announce that, yes, we've had our first successful shifts, and as a result of this, we replaced maybe 5 workers or 10 workers. It doesn't have to be a huge number, but demonstrate that yes, it's reliable enough to do this particular task, do it for an entire shift, and it showed up the next day and did it again and again and again and again. And oh, by the way, the actual cost of operation of that thing was equivalent or less than what we would have been paying labor at that time, because that's going to be the key metric. You can automate all you want, but if it costs twice as much to automate, you don't automate.
Well, let me ask it this other way. Isn't the market forward looking? Jeff mentioned that. How forward looking? Are we talking 1 year, 2 years? What do you think?
Well, the market is forward looking, allegedly. I mean, that's kind of the thing that's been crazy, hasn't it? Is that you would think it would be forward looking or something like this, and it hasn't demonstrated it's being that way. And when it's not forward looking, I think that's what you call opportunity, right? And so, that's the judgment call everyone has to make, is that when are these bots really going to come out there? And we've heard a lot of people that are very bullish on it, and they're almost like they want to keep it a secret. They almost don't want these things to go out there because they want to use it as an opportunity to buy up the shares when they're low. And then when this happens, everyone's going to go, oh my God, look, the robots are actually working in the factory. Who would have guessed? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, the breadcrumbs, more than breadcrumbs, have been out there for a while that this day is coming. We just don't know when it is. And I understand that a lot of investors are always skittish. They're never quite sure. They really want to know that it's going. But again, the Band-Aid's been ripped off of the stigma. Right? It's not just Tesla that is trying to do this. There's many other companies that are out there. And if they're doing it, that it must be they're all seeing something, that this technology is actually feasible and it's actually worthwhile pursuing. And not only that, there are companies calling up these bot companies saying, hey, we'd like to do a pilot, because they're also the ones that are a little bit worried that if they don't get on this bandwagon, they're going to be the ones caught without a bot coming in and doing the operations while their competitors are doing it, and are seeing their margins go down while the others are going up.
So, Jeff, what is the market cap of OpenAI?
Off the top of my head, I mean, it's a private company, so I don't know.
$90 billion valuation. What's the revenue? What's the revenue?
Are they going to kick their CEO out tomorrow and it's going to be $9 billion? Or again, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Here's the other thing I think to keep in mind with these things, and I try to reiterate this over and over. I don't know if people are listening or not. When Tesla ships the bot and actually starts shipping it to himself or shipping it to other customers, start a clock. And that clock's going to run for probably 1 to 2 years or more before that program even starts printing positive margins to the bottom line. Same thing with the compact vehicle. So there's going to be milestones where they're going to be able to build and ship stuff, and it's going to be helpful. But I think everybody was also super excited about the Cybertruck, and still are. But that Cybertruck is going to take a year or more for it to be accretive to the bottom line. So with these large capex type projects, and very unique projects with very unique capex and very, very little platforming, it's going to take some time for them to be. First off, there's above gross margin, below gross margin. Above gross margin is the production product itself. And then when you're inclusive of below gross margins, you're talking about all the R&D investment involved to make that project. So above gross margins may take them a year or more for it to be, to actually swing positive. And then when you actually start including the original investment, it could take a little bit longer, but that's a true time to break even analysis. So just keep those things in mind. I think it's really important when it's gross margin accretive. So I don't think you have to recoup all your development costs. So I'm not trying to be overly conservative here, but just remember those bots rolling off the line are going to be, negative gross margins for a period of time. Again, unless the service that ships with it is so accretive and so compelling and ready day one, that may offset it. Same with FSD. If the 25K vehicle ships as a robotaxi, well then it may offset a lot of those ramp up costs in the first year. But it's just part of the equation. The markets do look ahead, but in terms of it actually increasing the earnings power of the company, they're either going to have the AI solution ready to go at launch, or you're going to still have to kind of burn off those hardware margins in the beginning.
Yeah, no doubt that it's going to be useful work. They're not going to go and make 1,000 if it haven't proven that it's useful work, right? They're going to have a prototype of the hardware, which you're seeing now that they've been testing to make sure that it is, see, they're getting closer to the design lock, as the terms you use. Then they're going to show the autonomy, the ability to train it autonomously. You've been seeing many bots. Scott and I have been showing so many bots that are already doing, you can already see that it can already do useful work. Digit worked for 7.5 hours. They were at a conference. You can actually see the pick and place that it was doing it for, 7.5 hours. I think they worked over 12 hours straight or something like that. So, it can actually do it. So I guess the other question would be, okay, it's one thing about seeing revenue, but you were saying margins, but the bots can actually impact the bottom line of the margin of Tesla if they can actually get, 1,000 working in a factory. Do you need to see 1 million before it actually shows tremendous reduction in true cost of, margins of the cars that they've built? Or once you see 1,000, and then you can extrapolate further and go, my gosh, because if they just tell you how quickly they'll be able to ramp this up. There was a post by Elon, ARK Invest was asking the question, right? Shouldn't this be 10 times faster to ramp the bot? And Elon said, he answered it differently. He said, well, it's still much more complex per weight of mass, a bot is, but it should be half the price of a car. So that's how we answered it. What's your thoughts, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going, I was going to ask a question kind of back to Jeff, because
Yeah.
we're looking at what's the definition of useful work. And you sort of mentioned that it has to be cheaper than, I mean, that's the real thing. It's one thing it can do the task. We have to make sure it's actually cheaper. And how you come up with that number, it's really hard. I mean, one way you can look at it is like, well, what was the price of electricity that day and how much did the bot use? That's one way. You've also got bot miners that are around there. But in the end, you've got to look at the development costs and everything else, and at some point figure out what the hourly operations are. And I'm not sure what it's like to calculate all that. I mean, Jeff has a better idea. It's a certain amount of witchcraft that's kind of going on there when it comes to accounting and deciding exactly what it is. But I would think, and there's going to be sort of that cost of operation, but it's also going to be the operation costs that you didn't have, that you avoided. Wow, we didn't have a laborer that day. We didn't have to actually pay for someone to be able to do that particular task. So that's something else that's going to be able to hit it. At some point, someone's going to be able to figure out what that is. So I agree that at the beginning, it's going to look like it's not helping the margins, but then you've got to peel that off and look at it more closely and say, well, what if we project this out 2 years from now and it continues on that trend? What's that going to look like? And I think that will help quite a bit. And then, of course, I completely forgot what the other question is. Oh, I think it was a cost question that you were talking about. And again, I was just going to ask Jeff, is that, Elon was talking about that it's more complex per kilogram and than it is for a car. But I think the real question that ARK Invest is trying to ask is like, well, it seems like it should be almost 10 times easier to ramp this up. And I don't know if that means it's not really a cost question, that it's going to cost less. Maybe it's 1/10 the cost to be able to do it. But you'd also imagine not quite the same square footage, but also you would think the manufacturing headaches that go along with it. And you would know a little bit better, because when I think about that, is that this is more complex per kilogram than a Model 3, no doubt about it. And you know that for sure.
Mhm.
But what's the ramp up of this like versus an automotive plant? Is it just as easy, or is it, harder?
Mhm. Yeah, the answer is it depends on the level of platforming that's involved in the capex. It depends on. This is one of the reasons when you look at a Galaxy phone or you look at an iPhone, and they pair the years together, where you see it's basically the same mechanical structure on the outside. That one of the reasons for that is actually to take that time to break even and improve it dramatically during ramp, and then take the capex structure down, so you're dividing over multiple years. So in terms of the ramp up speed, um, you, so the things that determine ramp up speed, is that density factor, one. Two is the total part count and total process time. And so, I mean, we'd have to sit down and understand like where they're at with the total part count, total assembly time of it, because this sub 40-second click rate, this is with automobiles, this has occurred over a number of years of Tesla, grinding this down. It's going to take them a bit of time to get this going, I think, on the bot. But the bot will be a little bit more complex than a smartphone ramp. In a smartphone ramp, if you're trying to get 5 million of them ready for launch, and these are companies that have been through this for 15 years in a row, so just keep that in mind. And they've got a lot of people, and they've got a pretty robust process around it. But the assembly factory is ramping for about 2 to 3 months in advance of that, basically. And then that would be kind of unique for Tesla, because right now Tesla kind of says a product's available for sale, like the Model 3 refresh, but there's nothing they've not pre-built anything. Whereas that thing you're holding in your hand, there's a whole philosophy around pre-building it prior to you announcing it being it for sale, so that when people go to points of distribution, they can buy the product immediately. So in terms of comparing the complexity, it should be less complex to do than a vehicle. There's no question about it. But you know, there is a higher density of unique materials involved in building the bot, and we really need to get into some of the bottleneck exercises around what are they, and then do they split off into their own lines? Like the actuator line is obviously going to split off into its own. I'm assuming there's going to be a building doing actuators, not just a couple of lines. And how is that operation going to work? Because if you ramp up, if you can do kind of a staged ramp up in advance and get everything planned out properly, you can make it look pretty seamlessly. That's been part of the problem that's plagued Tesla in the past, whether it's the battery pack ramp ups and so forth. If those predecessor ramps, those tier 2s and 3s in the supply chain, if they don't go well as the plan, then it screws up your tier 1 ramp in your main factory. So in short, I think it's going to be a little bit less complex to do than their most complex vehicle. I do think that you're obviously your output per square meter is going to be much higher. It's a smaller product, but it's really going to come down to what are these unique parts in the supply chain, and what's their capability, what's the capacity, what's the velocity, what are the key issues involved. We're here today on Cybertruck, and we don't know why they're only doing a couple hundred a week. We don't know the answer to that yet. We know that parts of those supply chains have been in production for a long time, so there's obviously still bottleneck processes that they haven't fully resolved yet, or haven't brought up all the capacity on. So in terms of the cost question, I think it's gonna less than half of the cost. I think Elon, that was a tell. I think he's told his team to make the bot be less than $10,000 is what I think he's told the team.
Yeah. Okay, so you interpret that as $10,000 because K10 said, "Oh, you mean 25 to 30," and Elon said,
No way.
"Less over time." Yeah. Okay, I've felt the same thing, and I think when it comes to complexity, you hit the nail on the head. It's the actuator line. I mean, you take away the actuator, there's not much left of the bot. It's just some cameras, some electronics in the batteries, and
Yeah.
some structure. That's about it. So most of it is there, and I agree with you. I mean, that there's going to be a main line for that. It's going to be highly automated. I'm imagining it's going to look something like the battery line. But do you think they're going to have? Because this is the thing that's always hard to predict. Every time you do one of these things, you think it's going to be real easy. There's going to be a couple of hiccups, but you think the hiccups are manageable, and it turns out it's the thing you don't expect is really difficult. So the 4680, Tesla was being very cautious. I mean, that's the first time I heard them saying, "Oh yeah, this is like 3 years." Well, it's been more than 3 years, and they're still having some difficulties with it. So clearly, it's a rather difficult process to master. But we're talking about dry electrode, everything else there that is a good reason why it's very difficult for them to get it up and running. Whereas an actuator line, unless they really invented something completely novel and really weird, I can't see that there's anything that's a deal breaker or would stop it right away. Can you imagine anything that might be there?
Well, I mean, it depends what performance they're demanding from these actuators. There's some, as there's some actuators in the design that that require less performance, less degrees of freedom, and so forth. So it's really going to depend. How do they yield these things out? And I'm assuming there's unique part numbers here. It's not like they're all the same actuator part number and they just grade
There's
them.
just six. There's really just six main ones, and then the ones with the fingers. There's really only seven. So you only have to
Okay.
worry about that many lines, I guess you can
Yeah.
say. And as far
Yeah.
as common components between them, they're sized differently, so there may be some similarities in the design. So you have basically 3 rotational and 3 linear, but I think all of them are using, let's say, the same type of gears, drives in there and transmissions. So it's not like each one of them is unique in design, just kind of sized differently. The only question is whether they chose some sort of super high tolerance or some material or some process that's going to be so difficult to get that is the bottleneck. But then again, these actuators, they want to have good power density and they want to have reasonable strength, but they're not going to be the strongest actuators in the world. They're not going to be the fastest running actuators in the world.
Mhm.
So all the specs about them is just this lighter and tighter. That's it. They just want to get them as compact as possible. And that might be part of the challenge. It's like anything. When you make it smaller, sometimes that's kind of challenging, even though the performance that motor's getting is not going to be better than any other motor you've ever seen at that size. It's just that the thing is going to draw very little current compared to another motor that's sized down like that is going to have like 20 times the torque. So,
But Scott, isn't one of the key things though is you're going to have these things are the demand on the spec window, like they've got to be very consistent hand to hand, right? Otherwise the training could go
there'll be some consistency, but I would think the encoders will kind of account for that. So you'll be able to see whether it's off. You've got the vision system. The thing is, it used to be in robotics, you tried to make things as repeatable as possible and your tolerance is low and as stiff as possible, just so you get that repeatability, because we didn't know how to measure.
Gauge R&R.
Yes. So now it's like, wait a minute, it's the opposite. The whole idea of the robot is to be a little bit sloppy, because we're a little bit sloppy. We're able to do it. And so long as you can have the vision system that can compensate, you should be all right. I mean, the biggest concern I would have is like, oh, I can make these motors that have the performance I want, but the darn thing burns out, after 300 hours of operation, I have to replace it. So, you want to make sure that it's going to last, 5 to 10 years, little things like that. So I don't know what it would be the hang up. I would think, as far as being able to scale this, when you get ready, when you like the design, we've been building motors for well over a century of different types. So that's not something that's necessarily novel.
Well, if they can do tolerance accumulation post manufacturing, and they can calibrate this out in the bot, well, then that, to me, that opens everything up. But if these things have to,
the industrial bots, they do that. They go through and they do the signature. They take the glass ball and they move it around, and they have this laser that's kind of falling around there, and you create a signature file, because they realize there's no way we can manufacture these things to the tolerances we want. We can get close, but at some point we need the signature. It's going to be the same thing. And plus, it's real time, because the industrial bots, most of them don't have a vision system built in. So they have to always be repeatable, going back and forth. You want to make sure there's no slop or anything else. But the human bot, it's just like us. We wake up and, we feel a little bit funny. We just look at our hands and we figure out where it's going to be. I guess I would just go back to that scene in RoboCop. Remember he got beat up really bad? And then, he had to go out and redo the targeting. He took a couple of shots. He was off. Oh, I retarget him there. It's going to be the exact same thing. So again, science fiction actually is kind of predicting a lot of the stuff we're seeing as far as how stuff is going to work. Everything from Johnny Five saying need input, realizing that that's the key to AI, to humanoid bots need to be calibrated.
Yeah. No, so I think that will help the cost picture, the ramp picture immensely. That's the one big variable I would say that's back in my mind. The other thing is just power consumption. So here are the things we don't know about these actuators. Like, we see a demo, right? We see it in movement, so we can see degrees of freedom and we can see some elements of speed. But what we don't understand is we don't understand consistency. We don't understand power consumption. We don't understand reliability. How many actuations can they do before there's some sort of loss in motion, or there's catastrophic failure? What happens in hyperextension? What happens? These are all the things what happens with moisture in high humidity environments? And what happens with liquid ingress protection? How are all these factors being managed? Because again, when you're doing demos and you're trying to debug, performance and AI, you are thinking about reliability, but you may not have everything solved yet. So reliability, to me, comes to mind as well, as have they solved for that? So that's why when you keep asking me, Herbert, I want to hear them say that they've got to design lockdown, because then I know what they're building. And then for me, a clock starts and there's about a year's worth of work for them to iterate, get through the reliability challenge, get through the DFX challenges in the factory, and then have something that they'll be ready to put to scale.
Okay. Xander, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you guys agree with my thinking that currently we're very revenue driven? Back to your question, Herbert. We're very revenue driven, but if we think about 2020, that was promises and growth rate, right? So it was promises of FSD and growth rate that drove the stock. Is that do we need revenue to come through the balance sheet, or will just seeing design lock and listen to what Scott was saying, seeing these things coming to fruition, will that actually switch the sentiment to where now they're actually get treated like an AI company versus a car maker?
I mean, the move in 2020, 2021, there was a whole lot of there was a tech bubble happening. A lot of companies were stretched. I think Tesla had a many 100x PE at that time. And I don't know if it was just on the promise of full self driving. Tesla was going. They were actually flipping from losing money to making money, and they were growing at like 50. They were growing at like 50, 70, 100% per year. So it had a huge growth multiple on it. So now that portion of it's not clear. What's becoming more clear is maybe where the hardware growth multiple is. It's not clear where the total revenue multiple is going to be with FSD and with AI. So if they can articulate a path, which Tesla has not done in the past, they haven't really guided with clarity. But if they could, well, then yeah. But I think right now the markets aren't necessarily giving that away. The Morgan Stanley note I thought was very interesting. Of like he was saying like 24% EPS estimate for this quarter. I mean, but he has a $320 price target. So what he's saying is he's basically putting a 320x PE on the company. So yeah, it's hard to Xander, it's hard to say how markets are going to react. I think 2021 was a little bit of a unique time in the market, but it's hard for me to say it's going to be one way, or the other. But Tesla's not growing right now the way they were growing back in that time period, and that growth factor is key. And their gross margins were growing too. So their gross margins were growing, their revenue is growing, and even though it wasn't making tremendous amounts of money yet, it was on a trajectory of year-on-year growth. So if they can start articulating what that looks like again, then yeah.
Okay, so that's a great conversation on the impact of Tesla Bot to Tesla stock. Got a couple more questions about the bot. We've got Scott Walter here. So then we'll talk about FSD and its impact to Tesla. And then, of course, the production delivery numbers are coming in just a few days here. That's for first quarter of Tesla's Q1. So one of the big questions everybody keeps asking, big divide among the community, I think, is whether or not there's competition amongst all the different bot vendors. So we know that there's a number of bot vendors that have been coming out doing their own demos. We've got, I think, what is it, Scott, in our list, 22, maybe?
I think it might be more now.
I think it's more than that. Yeah, I'll pop that up. But there's a list of probably 30 plus, and then half of them are from China. The other half is from Western. And then, of course, we heard the figure raised $675 million. And then everybody's going, oh my God, Tesla's market is going to be shared amongst all these bots vendors. I want to just ask the same question to everybody in the panel here. Is there competition amongst these other bot vendors? Let's start with you, Scott.
Yeah, first, I just wanted to respond to Jeff's comments to talk about how does Tesla articulate future growth, and my response is they articulate with optimism. Had to get that in there. So as far as the competition, we know that the TAM is huge. Right now, no one is going to be taking sales away from anyone else because right now they can't handle it. So we already know that Figure had to turn down business because they just don't have the bandwidth for it, and it's going to be the same with all the others. So that's what we're going to be seeing going forward, is that they're all going to be, maybe they'll be a little bit competitive, but I think, more in spirit than anything else, that they're going to be more collegial for the most part. And it may almost be that you're seeing kind of two operating systems come out here, just like we did in the smartphone space, where you had iOS and Android. And right now, Android looks to be the offering coming from NVIDIA, and iOS looks to be the offering coming from Tesla Bot. So I don't know if Tesla is going to ever think of opening that design, what they have up, like potentially they would do with FSD for cars, for other humanoid bot chassis or not. So that's what we, remains to be seen whether that happens.
Okay. And then what do you think, Xander?
I think there's definitely competition, but I think the data advantage that Tesla has to actually make it a useful robot is going to shine once you start seeing deployment.
Okay. And then what about you, Jeff?
Yes, there's competition, but what's not clear to me is do they have the ability to scale economically and in volume?
Yep,
Yeah.
great points.
Well, so my answer is no, there is no competition. And the reason is that I bring it back to the fact that there's a $44 trillion labor market, and that if Tesla makes 20 million bots, and then the next player makes a million bots, or flip it around, one player makes 20 million and Tesla makes a million, it's not like the second player is not going to sell their million, even if their bot is half the speed, twice the cost, not as smart. There's just so much opportunity that the 20 million will be sold and bought by so many people. It's unbelievable how many jobs are available right now, and you can't really compete. So I think that the competition amongst all these bot vendors will happen. It will be way past 5 years, maybe even 10 years before they're going to rub shoulders. Like a customer said, I'm not going to choose you, I'm going to choose them instead. And then I think that there's so much opportunity that if you do find that you are competing, then you would make your bot different for a very specific role. So let's say that you want to pick up cement and carry cement. Well, then your bot's going to be a sumo wrestler. It's going to be that strong. It's going to have double the battery size. You're going to have these different form factors, and so you can specialize in a certain niche if you want to. Any comments on what I just said, guys?
Yeah, I think we're kind of in agreement that the market is so big that they're not going to be taking business away from one another. And if they do, there's going to be someone else down the road that they'll be able to sell to. So it's not like it's going to be hurting anyone's growth. And we can look at it two ways. Is like, is there any competition here for Tesla? Well, maybe there is, or maybe it doesn't matter. So if you're really looking at Optimus, I would not be worried about the competition coming in and affecting what Optimus is going to be doing in the short to medium term. Maybe way out in the long term, there's going to be something, because we see there are other companies. No one's going to ever allow Tesla to have 100% of this market. It's just if the Tesla bot is super successful, people aren't just going to sit on the sidelines and say, "Oh, I'm never going to build a humanoid bot." I mean, there's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines to go ahead and do a project. So we know that at some point they're going to get some, but it doesn't mean they won't be the dominant player. I mean, it's going to be hard for a lot of them to catch up. And there are niche markets, and it's always the same way in the robotics market, like it is in everything else. There are a lot of small niche players in the robotics market that realize the only way that they could get into the market was to go after these niche applications that the big ones didn't want to. And the big ones they don't want it because they don't see the margins down there. They would rather play in a different space. So I really don't see that coming. And, we can talk about all the advantages that Tesla has. The fact that they already know how to manufacture, they know how to scale these things, the way they design them, the fact that they have already internal customers they can work with. And and who knows, we might be able to see them actually being able to get some sort of revenue or some sort of impact on the bottom line before everyone else, just because depending on how you do that accounting, if it's being used to build cars, it's doing useful work, which means it's saving the company money. So it goes down to that adage, penny saved is a penny earned. And that's kind of how I look at it. And then if they do actually start selling it outside, that'll be something else. And I agree, with Jeff, that it could be, within the Musk universe. Why not? That it could be useful for SpaceX. It could be useful for Starlink. It could be useful in a variety of different applications and tier suppliers to Tesla themselves. So they don't necessarily have to go way outside of the Tesla universe to be able to start seeing impacts from that and growth.
Yeah, I think the TAM is a good reminder, but I think where the companies are going to compete is on the scale and economics of their solution, obviously the performance and capability, but then the business model, I think, is where the real front of competition is going to be, and who has the ability to offer a really rich business model where it doesn't cost me all this capex up front to acquire this bot labor to build something. I think the business models where you're going to have competition will be interesting. But I agree, the TAM is a good reminder. It's very big.
Yeah, I think of like the Roomba robot, and or like that being the brand that started the wave, and then now we don't use that in the house. It's something else. So I imagine in the beginning you have the grace of youth and everyone can eat, but then you'll have, like you said, 22 or 30. The list looked like it was 15 or so. But uh, once that filters out, the winners are going to percolate to the top, and you're going to have what, like three clear winners. Just like McDonald's and Burger King and maybe Jack in the Box or whatever. You're gonna have like a handful, and everyone else is just they won't be able to compete.
So one thing that's interesting about this is that the humanoid bots could actually build other humanoid bots, because Tesla showed that they showed them one of those, their very first demos was a bot putting together another bot. But when we asked that question to Scott, who is a expert, he knows a lot about these industrial robots and how they're built. You said that you don't actually think that you actually need a humanoid bot to make another humanoid bot. It's going to be all so automated. Because the reason I bring that up is that if you have humanoid bots making humanoid bots, and that was a requirement or something that can make it faster and cheaper, then the more you make, the cheaper you're able to make it, and then it just exponentially, you're going to separate yourself from the next company out there, because time matters, scale matters, if that's the case. But Scott, can you clarify what you thought about that?
It depends upon where you are in the production process. So if we look at the battery line right now, I don't know that you see any humans in the battery line, except maybe at some input at the beginning and maybe some at the end. But in between the whole thing, it's all hard automation, everything else. Maybe there's a few steps in there where a human has to come in and do something every now and then, but for the most part, it is fully automated. The same thing with like a bottling line. I mean, we can put Coke in bottles. People can do that, but there's a reason Coke is running a bottling line the way it does, because it's high speed and it can do it so much faster than you can do it with human labor or anything else. So you're only going to put labor, or the bots are only going to be part of the labor pool for building bots where you would typically put humans in there in the first place. So the actuator line is something I don't think you're going to see any human bots in there unless there are steps or operations along that actuator line, which are typically done by a human and still would be, that somehow you just can't automate your way out of it. You wouldn't need to do a particular way. So you would see it there. The final assembly, that's where I think you would start to see the bots potentially go in there, because then as you have these smaller assemblies coming in, it's just a matter of putting them together. And you could see that. But it is possible that someone comes along with a more clever way to just bundle all these things up really fast, because you might say that the bots have more utility outside the factory doing work than inside the factory if they're so slow. So if I'm able to come up with something that runs much faster than the bots, you do it. And again, that kind of looks at those three different levels of volume, where you have low level, medium, and extremely high. And extremely high, you'll have that. So who knows? When we get to that, we need to produce 1 billion bots a year, then that will be something else. But if we're only producing a couple 100,000 or a million, you're going to see lots of bots in the factory. And again, I think what I've talked about is that the Q&A for the bot is that when the bot is done, it comes around and replaces the other bots that are building the other bots. And once those bots have proven that they can successfully build a bunch of other bots, that's when they go to shipping. So they never go straight to shipping. That actually becoming part of the production process is part of the quality assurance.
Oh my God, that's
the whole thing is going to be weird. I mean, it's like, I can't exactly tell you what it's going to look like. All I know is it's not going to look like anything we've seen today. It's just going to be a very weird way, because they're going to be applying this for the first time. And, it's been talked about, you can start thinking vertical now. You can have bots hanging upside down because, people can't, you cannot be flipping your feet up there and reaching down and doing something, you're going to pass out. There's all these environments you can't go in that, the bots can do there. If it's this kind of situation, we just need a bot lying down underneath something, reaching up and doing something and doing that all day long. You're not going to do that to a human. You're not going to have a person sitting in their back, in this thing with a car coming over them that they have to go in there. No, they got to take breaks and everything else, and they got to move around. So, I mean, you can just start imagining that things will start to change a little bit, not just in the bot factory, but outside in other factories as well.
All right. Thank you
I
guys
think
so
I
much.
shocked
Great.
Jeff there a little bit with my crazy ideas.
No, you shocked me. I was like, you're imagining it. I'm not imagining it, but now I am, thanks to you. Mm.
Okay, great conversation on the bots. Appreciate you guys. Let's talk FSD, full self-driving. We need to talk about it because the progress is just through the roof, excitement. And then I was telling Joe Tegmeyer, who's taking videos every day, drone videos of Giga Texas. I said, that, what an amazing day that Milestone will be when, just like what you said, Scott, when the cars come out the production line to Giga Texas, they are driven by FSD autonomously to find its own parking lot. Parking spot, like it just takes care
No,
of
right
itself.
on the truck, right on the
Right.
delivery truck, right through testing, waterproofing, or whatever they do, and then
2 months
straight
ago, we're all
on
joking, going,
charging.
yeah, that'll never happen. Now, many of us think, yeah, that
Just
can
think
actually
about
be
it.
done.
This will be the first time that when you take delivery of your brand new car, you will be the first person to have driven it. The thing is, every car I bought when it was brand new, I was not the
True.
first person to sit in there and drive it. Someone else was driving that thing. Even if it was for like a mile or two, the first couple of miles were not put on by me.
All right, well, I have no sentiment about that. That's fine, but okay, big deal. So FSD, guys. So what's the FSD pathway and milestone to impact the stock? Is it yet another thing, Jeff, where until we see the take rate of FSD subscriptions, until we see robo-taxi, until then, we're not going to see the stock jump?
No,
Despite
I think it's
continuing
different.
improvement, okay, well, why is it different? First of all, okay, that's crazy, Jeff. Go ahead, explain
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, I think it's what's different is number one, we have a product that's in production already. It's producing revenues. So what's going to happen is if the product is meaningfully better, more people are going to buy it in the region it's available in, and then and if more people are buying it in the region it's available in today, uh, and then it becomes, first off, it has to become feature complete, stabilize. And then what they can do is start expanding it inside of other Tesla. There's other 4 million other Teslas on the road outside of the U.S. and Canada, and they'll make more money doing that. And then they'll that will increase the valuation. And then while they're doing that, while it's become so stable in the U.S., these other OEMs are driving around their own solutions and saying, Tesla's here today. Where's Tesla going to be 2 years from now? Where are we going to be here 2 years from now when we think we have our solution ready? And if we can't plot a path where we think we're as good as or meaningfully better than Tesla, why are we investing all of these R&D dollars into something that's not going to be as good of a product or scale as economically as well? And I think so. The other area where you would get a big bump is is a licensing deal, which I think we could be getting. I think we could be getting closer and closer. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's where you would see if there's a licensing deal announced with a major OEM, and then people will start kind of drawing correlations to supercharging. But now there's just a lot more dollars involved here. I think that's where now you have Tesla touching the rest of the auto industry outside of their couple million units per year. Now you have them potentially having access to millions of other units per year, with with a SaaS solution, with a hardware and a SaaS solution. I think that would do wonders for how the stock is valued, or how the company is valued.
And back to 50% growth at the minimum, back to that growth rate, because they've completely disrupted what a car is and how many people want to buy a vehicle that is not smart. That even if it's not robotaxi, right? Having incredible safety, incredible driving experience, being able to tell it to go find out its own parking spot and then having it come pick you up, all these little things adds up and it becomes so compelling that why would you buy a car that's not smart, right?
Yeah, I have that same I have the same thought process, because there's some interesting, like, nice looking vehicles. The new Porsche Taycan looks pretty nice. The new, if you like large SUVs, new Rivian looks nice, but I don't see any path to those having autonomy. And there's other performance reasons why I would prefer a Tesla over them. but the no path to autonomy is to me is a deal breaker. By the way, what's been a deal breaker this year for a lot of people buying non-Tesla EVs is no charging solution. That's been a deal breaker. Now we're at 120 days of inventory or more on these, and now so that logjam is going to be broken open. I think there's a similar logjam behind it with the ability to autonomously drive, and you're not going to be able to retrofit a car like you can with the connector to be able to make it charge on Tesla networks. These companies doing a licensing deal and showing a path to shipping a car with Tesla's solution, I think would be good for both companies, actually.
Yeah. So Xander, let me ask you the question, Xander, then you can ask your question, because I wanted to ask you, like, with the stock, everybody's seeing it. The Twitter community, it's a small bubble. We're all watching FSD. We're all seeing it's a step change. You're starting to hear institutional investors talk about it. Brad Gertzer of Altimeter started investing in Tesla specifically because he sees FSD becoming a ChatGPT moment. When do you think that investors will wake up to this and they're going to start, building up the stock because of this?
Uh, I was going to say, I think we got a sneak peek on Monday of you had Bernstein downgrade the stock from 150 to 120, yet we had a 6% rally on FSD news. So you're kind of seeing it that just the it's culminating to a place where the promises were made, and now you're starting to see it happen. So I think that it's it's just a question of when do they decide that, like Jeff was saying, with a partnership deal can like we saw with Hertz, you can look at it forward and see that the revenue will be coming. So now you have you also have validation from a big manufacturer. So now you're not going to have pushback from regulatory bodies, because now you have the Fords or the GMs. These guys are going to want their investment to pan out. So, but I was to ask, doesn't the solving of FSD become a mandatory thing like seatbelts and airbags? Down the line, isn't that if it drives safer, it becomes the norm? In my opinion, do you guys agree with that?
I think yes and no. Whether you end up getting a regulation that says all cars must have that, there's still a lot of people out there that don't like the idea of helmet laws for motorcycles, and they don't like wearing their seatbelts. So, and a lot of people push back against airbags as well. So, it's going to be one of those things that if you enforce it as a regulation, probably not. But Volvo, I think, proved that you didn't need regulation. You just needed to start running these ads way back then, talking about how they were safe vehicles and how they had the seatbelts. And at that time, it was like, oh, never run an ad that's so negative that's about safety. It's a bad idea. And it turned out, actually they get a lot of converts because people are concerned about safety. So I don't know when you ever get to that, because I'm not sure. Let's say society is ready to say that people can't drive anymore. It's just going to be a more natural thing over time, where younger people aren't that interested in getting their driver's license anyways. And so they're going to be moving more towards robotaxis. But the older generation that is so used to it, they're going to be like, no, I want to keep on driving until I can't anymore. And so will new cars be allowed to or be required to have FSD? That's a tough call. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think the governments will mandate a monopoly. So if Tesla is the only one that has this solution, they won't say like you. I mean, what they could do is they could give them a 10-year horizon and say, over 10 years, we would like you to, let's say Tesla has 10 or 15 major features. We would like you to adopt these 10 to 15 major features over a 10-year horizon, and you can develop them themselves, and they need to get to this level of performance, maybe where Tesla is right now. Or you can develop them themselves, or you can buy them. But I think they would never, and especially Tesla is not. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, it's questionable what their relationship is with the government, because in some respects they're very highly respected. In other respects, obviously there's public battles going on. But yeah, I think you could see them, mandating the need for the performance, but not necessarily it has to come from Tesla.
Yeah, and then there's the other questions whether they get treated like AT&T and broken up into a bunch of baby bells. Whether that's the government solution when they decide that, oh, we need to have them all there. So you just like split them all up. You all have the same starting set. Now go ahead and do whatever.
You know that the general public sentiment, I think most of us believe that the regulations is going to be ridiculous. It's going to take years, and cities are very slow. That's most likely what will happen. Having said that, there might be a path where they're actually chasing. It's actually the opposite of what you think. Just today, New York City said that they're now open for car manufacturers to test out autopilot or to test out self-driving vehicles. You still need to have, a safety driver there, but you can go ahead and test it in their city. I think once they believe that the data shows them that it's safer, you might be surprised how quick there'll be some cities that's going to like jump right off the bat. So you can be, fully autonomous in my city, and there'll be enough of them that you can then seed it. And then there's many that's going to be very slow adopters. But once you see one or two cities jump, then it becomes easier for the others to just say, hey, we'll copy what they did. I still think it's going to be very slow, and I don't think we should rely on regulation that's going to happen anytime soon. But I just don't think it's going to be as 5 or 10 years away that some people are still saying it might be.
Yeah, but it's like more influential than regulations from the government, and that is insurance companies. So a lot of times when you have this void, a governmental void, so like if you look at shipping and insurance that goes on shipping, shipping is like international. Everything is international waters. So there's like no government bodies that can sort of really dictate how it's done. But the thing is, you have to insure your ship. So when your ship is built, you want to make sure it's built right. And so Lloyd's of London and others, they're going to these shipyards, no matter where they are, and they're making sure that ship is built right because they're actually planning on insuring it at some point. So that's sometimes how you get these standards. And you can see the same thing happening with with drivers. Is that once the data is clear that FSD is much, 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 much safer, you are going to see your insurance premiums go down, and other people are going to start to see their insurance premiums go up. And what will happen is that more and more of the people will decide to move that way because they realize that's really what it comes down to. It's an economic choice. It's not a forced choice. If they really want to drive, they can pay the premiums, but it'll be more that the public has to go along for the ride. It can't be something that's mandated for the top. Because I think if you do that, it will almost backfire. It has to be something that's so compelling that the data is there, so we will allow it. We're not going to ban it. We're going to allow it. This idea of a mandate, I think, doesn't go over very well, but the adoption will go up when people begin to realize that, holy cow, this FSD actually costs less per month than my insurance premium. And if I get this, my insurance premium will go down that amount. Boy, this makes sense for me to have it, and also makes sense for me to use it more and more often. And yeah, when I take over, I'm kind of taking this risk that I'm going to drive on my own. But hey, most people, you ask them, they want to drive, but they only want to drive 5% of the time, right? There's 95% of the time where they're like more than happy to have the machine do it.
I agree that the business model, if the insurance costs go down, then people will buy it. But I don't believe that insurance companies will lobby for this because it's existential threat for them. At some point, there's no need for insurance. So I don't think they're going to lobby for this, as you have insinuated.
Okay. Also, the contrarian take. I mean, that's all. I hadn't looked at it that way. That yes, it's like, wait a minute, you're breaking a model, which is maybe why Tesla insurance comes along.
Yeah, they don't care. That's yeah.
Yeah, I think that Scott, your economic making an economic choice is a great point. I like the way you framed that. But I want to sharpen it. I don't mean that like you don't get to drive anymore. I think demolition, where you have or iRobot, right? The machine drives through, like you said, 95% of the time. You want to go have a spirit drive on the weekend in the canyons, that's fine. But if it's actually safer, like I would want everyone else, because it won't be my Tesla that's going to cause the issue. It's going to be someone's, old archaic vehicle that's going to cause an accident. They're going to fall asleep and drive across the median. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Like, don't we start pressuring regulators, as parents, as husbands, wives, to push that this becomes, the regulation to drive accidents down. I think that, not immediately, but down the path, I think that there is no other option except to go down that way.
Actually, I think there is another kind of option in the middle, and that is you can still drive, but FSD is on there to take over when you're about to get into an accident. So it basically
Okay.
it's going along, and when it's because you were just sort of talking about that. In many cases, yes, you're afraid about the other car hitting you, but in many cases, the Tesla will make sure the other car doesn't hit you within certain reason of what's possible in physics. That you may start to see that it's going to be in there more as like safety equipment, just like you're required to have tires that are properly inflated that aren't worn down. You're required to have headlights. You're required to have taillights, working brakes. All these safety features in there, and it would kind of naturally go on there. And then the other option will be if the car gets into an accident and you're on FSD, then the deductible is zero. But if you get in an accident and it's clear your hands were on the wheel when that happened, then maybe the deductible is very, very high. So again,
Liability,
there'll be
yeah.
that incentive instruction that when you decide to take a risk, you actually are going to have to be paying for that risk.
Okay.
Okay, thank you guys. That was good. So let's talk about production and deliveries for the last topic here. So this is going to come out, Q1 is ending in a couple days, and then we're expecting Tesla to report this. I think some people, because I don't know if Monday's a holiday or not.
Tuesday
but
morning.
maybe Tuesday morning it'll come out. And the numbers are all over the place. There's some institutional analysts that's still at 460s and 430s, and some are like all the way down to 417, 415, or even lower. What's the take on the group here?
You mean to tell me there wasn't a 420?
Good one. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I would put it on a range somewhere between, maybe 410 to 425. If you had to put me on a number, I would say 420. Or maybe 415. We'll see. Yeah, I think 415 is probably good. Again, I'm not counting cars. I'm more of like I'm looking at the available information out there. The question is how are the markets going to respond? And it'd be interesting to see the price action once the P&D numbers are out. Does it rally? Does the rally have legs under it? Does it just chop around, or does it rally? Does it rally? Does it have legs? Does it rally? Does it sell off? Does it just chop around, or does it sell off, and then is the sell off immediately bought? I think there would be a lot of interesting information around it, because you can kind of craft. This is what I'm not a big fan of this short term price action, because I just see a tremendous amount of like bullshitting out there of like, oh, maybe it's already like all in. Like, well, okay, well, I mean, if every single investment bank and sell side analyst was at 470K, and now you're going to tell them you're going to have 15% less deliveries in the quarter, I'm not sure how that's all in, but whatever. That's why I think it's hard to really understand. So the price action is what's going to dictate it. So it's going to be really hard to predict. And then you have the FSD component out there, but I don't think there's consensus yet on how to value that. So I think you will see some interest. You'll see some reaction to the P&D numbers, and the question will be is what is the price action right after those numbers are released, and does Tesla say anything else with the P&D? They're usually very there's usually not a lot of commentary around the P&D, unless maybe they do a call out. Maybe they do a call out for the Model 3 issue. Maybe if they say something along the lines of, we had a startup issue with the Model 3 that has since been resolved, and that actually may be helpful commentary. So we'll see, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I saw Gary Black come out this morning and then say something like the consensus was 460, expectations are in 430s or 425. I heard, I think it was like AJ come out with some numbers closer to the 410 or 405 area, and I think what's his name says that it's going to be like 407. So the numbers are pretty low. I think that the important part for me is that there's such a big disparity between what Wall Street is what the consensus is and what reality has the potential to be from some of these people that are monitoring very closely. So I've kind of stopped caring about the PND numbers for my long-term portfolio. It's really FSD and robots. That's the thesis. So Jeff said about the short-term price movements. Yeah, they don't matter. But I like to sell call contracts, and when the price is flat like this, um, it's a great way for me to monetize a portfolio and make back some of those losses from leaps and all of that. So in this regard, I think that there's opportunity. And but for me, what I did was like I just bought some insurance. I bought a little bit of puts today at the close of the market, and then probably depending on which way we go on Monday, just buy insurance. If it goes to zero and we rally and we go up, great. I'm going to be happy because the portfolio is going up. But if we fall, then I'll feel good about the fall as opposed to feeling like Tesla is doom and gloom and Tesla is going down. So go ahead, Herbert.
Xander, it's so hard to hear you because you've been clipping quite a bit. But that's yes, it's. I agree with you. Not to look at P and D anymore. Focus on the story has changed. The narrative is changing as we're speaking. FSD is now much more real, much more credible. I'm hoping that FSD is going to create some sort of floor. So before, if FSD wasn't improving like it was, yeah, I'm definitely going to see the stock continue to fall over the next 6 months. But I'm hoping that FSD somehow, maybe it's still not quite out there. Nobody knows about it yet, so maybe it won't cause a floor. But I'm hearing, I think we heard one bear, Tesla Q, who's now buying because of FSD. We've heard several new investors, large institutional investors, who are now buying because of FSD. And yet, at the same time, we're hearing all these other institutional investors who continue to just downgrade the stock price because of the P&D numbers. And so it's still a mixed bag, I think, at this point.
It's all time horizon.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to point out that Tesla has 46% of retail public company investors. They have something like 20-something percent are institutional investors, 13% are mutual funds, and 13% are insiders. So the 46% retail is a sizable amount, kind of maybe act like that. They're the ones who are more likely to invest and raise the stock price because of the bot or because of robo-taxis. So there's a little bit of that might come into play. All right. Any comment on this, Scott?
Yeah, I was thinking that usually around this time when we get to the pricing and delivery or the production and delivery numbers, everyone says that the price has been is already been factored in, right? That everyone knows what it is, that what the price is, it's already built in. So usually you're not going to see that much price action afterwards because of that expectation. But in this case, I mean, the numbers I'm hearing are way different than normally the consensus is a lot closer together. And if it's a little bit of a beat or a little bit down, it's something else. So the question is really, what is the consensus? What does everyone expect? Because Tesla has blown past the 400,000 number quite a while ago, and the expectation is at some point they're going to be doing 500,000. And if you start hearing, the general person who's maybe not following Tesla that closely suddenly hears they were like 407 or something like that, if that really is, I mean, they're going to be like, oh my God, what happened? Now, anyone's been paying attention knows there's been like a triple witching going on there between the retooling for the Model 3, the Chinese New Year, and then you had the event in Berlin. And then you can maybe throw in a little bit that maybe the Cybertruck ramp was a little bit disappointing, but we don't know. It could be that something like that makes it a little bit of a beat. So the question is, what's the consensus? I mean, what does everyone really think it is? Is it 430? Is it 425 or something like that? And if it is around there and they do a little bit better than that, then probably you get to see people get excited about the stock. But if it's way below that, if you see a number like 407, man, that could cause a lot of people to rethink what's going on, especially if they're not aware of the context. And then, we don't have no idea what the next quarter delivery is going to be like. It could be, suddenly it changes so much and everyone says, oh my goodness, maybe I should have held on.
Just one quick comment, Herbert. I know we're going to switch. I think the one thing that a lot of people aren't talking about yet is what is the impact to vehicle sales once all the cars are able to drive themselves and that word is actually out and people know it. Because the word today is there's this package, it costs $12,000 or it costs me 10 Netflix subscriptions per month worth to get, and it works some of the time, but not all the time. What happens when that story meaningfully changes? Does it sell more cars? And I don't think anybody's explored that deeply and understands it, but we may be in a whole different situation a year from now where a refresh Model Y, a refresh Model 3, a fully ramped up Cybertruck, and the compact car on the horizon, and these things all drive themselves. It may really change the competitive landscape dramatically. And I don't think anybody's factored that, including, myself. It's more of a recent realization.
Oh, I mean, I just said it a little bit earlier, right? I think that at the very least, we're going to get back to the 50% growth rate again, just because we got FSD, not because it's robotaxi or anything but people are going to start buying whatever car, how many production that Tesla makes, it's going to be delivered, without price cuts. In fact, margin will not be as compressed. It's going to be pretty high. So one last question then, since we have Scott here, thought it'd be fun to just ask the question again. What is it like if we have a bot society? Just a little bit. Think forward. 10 years from now, we're all living in a world where you do have a bot at home. You see bots in the malls. You see, right now, my Japanese restaurant, they have these bots that are delivering the tea and the wasabi and at first it was cool, kind of cute, but now it's like it's been a year and they're still using it every day. So it must be very effective for them. Otherwise, they would have stopped doing it. And everybody's no longer, it's just part of the world. First of all, just a quick question. Do you think that this is something you're looking forward to, or are you afraid of it? And you think society is better or not? You want to start, Scott? You're the Mr. Bot.
Oh, okay. I thought that might have been something for Jeff. I think it's going to be interesting. The question is whether they're a companion that you take everywhere, whether you would take a pet or something else or a child. So, when you go to the mall, is everyone walking around with their bots? And at first, a lot of people are going to do it just for the flex to show that they have it and to bring it out to public. It's going to be a strange new world for sure when you see that, especially if you've been kind of sleeping on it and not really noticing it. And then you're going to think something bizarre happened. And the closest I can remember is years ago, it was I hadn't gone on business trips for a while because I had my kids and stuff like that. And suddenly I was on this trip and it was breakfast. I'm going down there and everyone's there sitting alone and they're all talking to themselves at breakfast. And I thought I had just checked into an insane asylum. And I realized it's because they all were using their Bluetooth and they were actually taking their business calls while they're eating breakfast. But it just looked bizarre from what the landscape had been just a year or so before. And so it's going to be one of those things that people are going to wake up and it's just going to be this feeling of what just happened. And are they suddenly in a Terminator movie or something like that? Because there are these mechanical beings walking around that weren't there before.
Yeah, I think there's this whole perception of there's a lot of critical things to think through. These bots are going to have cameras on them. So how do you know that the cameras are recording or not recording? These things are in public. There could be people trying to harm bots because they just don't want to see society going in this direction. So I think bots are going to have to ship with the equivalent of a sentry mode on them. And there's all these different things to consider. The key is going to be is showing that they're helpful and they're doing the things that are the least like the most repetitive and the jobs that people don't ultimately want to do. And as long as it's pitched that way, and it's allowing people to do jobs that they do want to do to make them more prosperous and more productive, then I think it can be it's going to be how they're pitched. And we have a very bizarre kind of social media type construct now, where everybody can kind of like just memory hold themselves into their own reality distortion field. And like this whole bridge incident, there's a contingent of people that say like, this was some sort of whatever campaign. There's other people like, oh, there's an accident, like. And it's just amazing how people just form their own set of almost facts around a situation. So I think a bot society is going to be very interested. It's gonna be a whole psychological exercise of how they're introduced in a very careful way. I worked on a program in 2012. I helped start the manufacturing effort for Google Glass, and there was a very strange thing about wearing those in public, and a lot of people that were working on the program ultimately decided to not wear them a lot in public, and there was a huge stigma around wearing a computer interface on your face. So these bots are going to be walking around with multiple cameras on them. So it's just interesting to see how society responds to these technological changes and advancements. And I think it's got to be put forth in a very thoughtful, meaningful way.
Well, if you walk around the streets of London, even if people don't have their cell phones on, you are being recorded everywhere you go. So society is already accepting the fact that whenever you step out in public, you are probably being filmed, if not by your neighbors, then by security cameras or the Tesla that drove by or something like that, or someone's Ring alarm. So it's almost like we've been inured to the fact that this is coming and people may not realize it right away. But I have to agree with Jeff. The question is, how do people react to seeing a bot in public? Now, if the bot is a companion, they probably won't attack it. But if the bot's wandering around by its own, it will. So in the end, the biggest job that humans will probably have in the future is being security guards for bots, is making sure that, because the bots will not be allowed to defend themselves. I'm not sure what precautions they'll be allowed to do. They're just going to have to sit there and take it, or try to flee, or hope some human comes over and protects them. So in many ways, that's going to be the last human jobs to go.
It's a property with camera, so they'll catch the perpetrator.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Xander,
but the question is whether society in general is like this big mob mentality, or if it's just one person.
Or the early ones have to ship with tasers.
Yeah.
Zap. All right, I've got an answer to answer your questions, but go ahead, Xander. You go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say was, Google Glass ship. It was in your face. You well, now you see Ray-Bans with the cameras right in there.
Nobody's okay with it.
And it's becoming more like Scott said. We're used to being filmed all the time. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, you keep cutting out. Okay, so I think that all technology previous to today has been very cold. It's an item. It's a product. And that's why when you put the Google Glass on, it has actually blocked you, the human, from this one's different. This one's going to talk to you. It's going to be intelligent. It can reason. It can understand. And so if they present it well, with a good personality, with a gentle personality, Scott and I just did a show with Aptronic, and he was explaining how the design of the face, they spent a lot of time making sure that it looked like a certain look that's not too uncanny valley, but not the scary kind. And so, but if the bot talks to you and you talk back to it, I think it's a different relationship. It's a very different relationship. So there might be a path for these bots to be accepted by society. But again, like I said earlier, the likelihood is that there's going to be people very upset about this and not going to want it to happen. But there is a path if they do it right, how you present the product, because it's warm, it's a relationship, it's a personality. You might actually feel love for it,
Yeah, the conversation could be disarming, literally. So just imagine if those Waymos that were being beat up on San Francisco, if they were getting in a conversation with them, oh, come on, what are you doing? It's like, then the guy would have felt really guilty for what he was doing. So it might be the kind of thing that you literally, there are these classes called verbal judo, right? Where you try to prevent the confrontation just by being able to talk to the person with a little bit of psychology. And just think about, the bots are going to have, like, the best reference guides behind them when it comes to being able to deconflict a certain situation. And again, it's just a question of where they're being used, how it's presented, and remember that we're not going to build bots for the sake of building bots just so we can put people out of business and just so we can produce parts that people can't, or products that people cannot afford to buy. The economy is a bunch of different variables and parameters, and there's only, at some point, you can only absorb so many bots. You're only going to need so many bots. We're not going to keep on producing those things, and it will come down to what society decides what they want to do. And I really think it comes down to replacing the jobs that are unfilled and unfulfilling. That's it.
That's good. It's a good summary.
Good. Thank you, Scott, for joining us here at CyberBulls. That was a great overview of everything about bots and FSD, and of course, what's coming up in production delivery in a couple of days here, or by Tuesday. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Jeff. Bye, Xander.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.